From the Dallas On Air studios in beautiful Dallas, Texas, this is Fulfillment here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your hosts, the Vegabomber PJ Dunn and the film samurai Carlos Salinas.
Welcome. Well, welcome to Fulfillment again. My name is the Vegabomber, and sitting to my right is
the film samurai.
The film samurai, and of course the guy in the chair is Kazak, and he's going to get us going today with our great music, which we already heard. And now let's get into it. So if you like films, if you like film collecting, if you like talking about films right after the film, before the film, then this is the show for you. Would you say you're a film fanatic as well?
Yes,
Carlos?
absolutely. I collect films. I try to find stuff. It's hard to find stuff sometimes. I went out to, interesting enough, this Forever Young Records yesterday. It's out in Grand Prairie near the Traders Village. And this is like a warehouse. First time I've been to this place. It's a warehouse of records.
Oh, man, we got to go.
Just vinyl. And, of course, I immediately went to the soundtrack section. and I found a vinyl of Heat. It's just finally released on vinyl. And
really?
So I had to get that Michael Mann Heat soundtrack. And I also got, what was the other one I got? Oh, the Barbarian Sound Studio. Because it's got some interest. It's not just the score, but it also has some dialogue and stuff, which I kind of like those kind of soundtracks, too, where they put snippets of dialogue in the movies. So, yeah, it's an amazing place. So recommend going out there.
Huh. I'm definitely going to do that because I love music and I love soundtracks. I'm pretty sure there's a Kiss section in there. And some
they got
stuff.
A lot of Kiss memorabilia you'll love. T-shirts, belt buckles.
Oh, man. That sounds like a road trip coming. Maybe we need to do a show from inside there or something.
Right? That would be awesome. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the box office to see what people are spending their money on, and then we'll tell you a little bit about the show and what we're going to focus on today. But in terms of the box office, there's our scratch, our wiki. We'll start from the bottom and go up. Number 5 this week is The Grudge, popping in with $11.4 million. Number 4, Frozen 2, believe it or not, is still pulling in ducats. It's at 11.9. Number 3 is Little Women, 13.6 million. Jumanji is at number 2. It's got some staying power here. It's at 26.2 million. That's pretty strong staying for the last couple of weeks. And then, of course, the number 1 film, probably no surprise to anyone, it's Star Wars: The Rise of Good Intentions. So that's, I think J.J. Abrams was trying really hard to try to do the best he could after what happened with Episode 8. So, guys, what do you think here? Surprises? Anything interesting here about this?
I'm a little surprised by Little Women. This is, a female-oriented film. I actually saw it over the Christmas holidays, and I thought it was delightful. I mean, it was a really sweet film. Greta Gerwig is the director. Seen a few of her other films before. She's an actress, but now she's getting directing now. So, you would think this kind of movie is not for a wide audience. A lot of guys may not want to go see it or for whatever reason. But it's kind of neat to see now. People can stop harping about, people don't go see women's films or women-directed films and this and that. It's not true. I mean, if you make a good film, people will go and see it.
Well, it got this well with little to no press. I mean, little to no Hollywood.
Very
hype.
Little promotion. Yeah, I never saw trailers for it.
Yeah, because you take a look at the other films on this list. You're taking a look at Star Wars, which of course is sucking up all the energy. You've got Jumanji, which has a huge media campaign. You've got Frozen 2, which is of course part of the Disney model.
Disney juggernaut. Yeah.
So the fact that this comes in.
Is that an A24 film? I'm wondering. I'm thinking it is. A24 is that little distribution where it's mostly art house films, but they hardly do any kind of promotion for their films.
It's basically, it's good to know that folks are actually going to films in these 2 weeks, around Oscar season, that right before Oscar season, right after all the hype movies are out of there, and they're at least digesting something decent.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it's interesting to see how just the box office is controlled by just a few properties that come out, and then how that affects the box office in terms of how other films want to get released because they don't want to get released
At the same time.
at the
right?
same time this stuff comes out because they'll get squashed in the box office. So it's something that we'll keep watching as a trend for sure. So this, ladies and gentlemen, as I switch gears just for a second, this is our first show of January of the new year of 2020. So we hope that 2019 was great for you, and we hope that 2020 will be even better. In fact, our main show segment today will be the best films of 2019. We're going to go back and reflect a little bit, and we'll also see the films that were the worst films, or at least at the minimum the most disappointing films of the films maybe that we saw. But before we do all of that, let's go ahead and track with what we've just seen, which will now be our first segment of the week, and that is movies that we have just seen. And so, as is our culture here, the Film Samurai always goes first.
All right. Okay. First one I'll talk about is a movie called Underwater. William Eubank is the director. I think he's only directed like one small other film. All of a sudden, they gave him this big budget, big movie, monster movie. I hadn't seen much about it. All of a sudden, I went to go see a movie at a Look Theater, and all of a sudden there's this big giant, standee in the lobby, Kristen Stewart's face underwater. So, okay. I thought it was a space movie at first, but
With the suit.
it was sort of, it was kind of like, it was weird. So, there's comparisons to Deep Star 6, The Abyss, these type of films. It was okay. The visual effects were amazing. The creature design was spectacular, especially towards the end. The sound mix was awful, though. I don't know if it was our theater that we saw it in, or if it was just the sound mix design itself. But there was a lot of dialogue I could not understand. Kristen Stewart's a fine actress, but in this movie, she does her, affected stuttering and mumbling, and her character is very odd. The movie starts out with her brushing her teeth, and then there's some voiceover. It was just kind of really bizarre way to start your film, but the action starts right away, and then it's nonstop. And there's edge of your seat stuff, and there's jump scares, and some of the other actors, T.J. Miller's in it, and this movie was shot like 2017.
Really?
It was a long time ago.
That's why T.J. Miller's
and this
in
is
it.
why T.J. Miller's in it. This is before he got Me Too'd. So he's the comic relief in the movie. And then there's another actress who played Colleen Wing in Daredevil, Asian actress. She's really she has an interesting role in it. Other than that, it was just kind of blah, I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't. I'd say if you go see it, lower your expectations. But that's it. The other movie I saw over the Christmas holidays was Uncut Gems. This is Safdie brothers, Josh and Benny Safdie.
This was Adam Sandler, right?
Adam Sandler, yeah. It's not the usual Adam Sandler, Happy Madison type stuff. This is a kind of a more. The plot is basically he's a Jewish jewelry dealer in New York City. And is it New York or Boston? I can't remember. It's a big city. And Garnett from the Boston Celtics is in it, and he plays himself. So he's looking for some jewelry, some bling, and he shows him this. If you've seen the trailer, he shows us a little Furby, diamond encrusted. He's got it on the camera, and its eyes are moving. And but he does show him this rock that he got from a mine in, I think, Africa. It's a really unusual gem. It's uncut. It's just this blob of rock, but it's got these glitter and things. And Garnett is fascinated by it, and he wants to hold on to it. He thinks it'll give him luck in the big game, and he said, "Yeah, I'll loan it to you, but you got to give me your championship ring to hold, as kind of collateral." And then one thing after another, he's making these wild bets. He owes people money. People are after him. He gets beat up. He's married, but he has a girlfriend on the side, and this girlfriend is played by Julia Fox. And oh my God, this woman is amazing. A lot of the actors in it, I think they're not really actors. They just brought them in, people they knew maybe, their first time, but it makes the movie kind of more authentic in a way. And so I had a great time with it. It's very nerve-wracking, and some people that are expecting an Adam Sandler, the typical comedy are really going to be like, oh, what? Somebody would sit next to me in the movie and they walked out, like in the first third of the movie. Like,
Wow.
it was kind of weird. But I've heard, people just walking out because they're thinking it's an Adam Sandler comedy, and it's really not.
Nothing funny.
The Safdie brothers are really good filmmakers. They made this movie called Good Time with Robert Pattinson. That movie is wild. These guys are really like, they're in the deepest, darkest recesses of humanity, and that I guess they're attracted to those type of people. So all their movies are kind of in that kind of vein. Drug dealers, drug users, So yeah, if you're into that sort of thing, that movie might be for you. The third one I want to talk about is this, not movie so much, but it's a series. It's a BBC series. It's by the guys Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, who created the Sherlock BBC series with Benedict Cumberbatch. And oh my God, what's the other actor's name? Martin Freeman, yes, The Hobbit. And it is, I was kind of blown away by it. It's a really interesting take on the Bram Stoker Dracula legend. It takes a lot from the book. It leaves out a lot from the book. And then it puts in really unique characters and situations. And the actor, his name is Claes Bang, who plays Dracula. He's really good.
Really?
But the standout for me personally was Dolly Wells. She's an English actress. She plays this sister Agatha, who knows everything about Dracula and wants to basically destroy him. And the first and second episode are really good. The second episode is mostly the ship, the Demeter, how Dracula got from Transylvania to the New World, the United States. He's on that ship in these boxes of dirt. So it has that whole thing, and there's a really great plot and story. The storytelling, it's vaguely campy. I mean, there's some scenes that will kind of make you smirk and laugh, but it's intentional. It's just that type of series, and they play it very well. And I won't talk about the third episode because it kind of takes off in a almost different direction, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody. So,
don't do that.
I recommend this series if you've got Netflix. It broadcasts in England and BBC, and then once it did, Netflix got it, and now all 3 episodes. And the episodes are really long. It's almost like watching 3 movies. So I don't recommend binging it. Just watch, like I did. I watched 1 episode a night. That was good. I mean, it was perfect. So yeah, those 3 were standouts.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, Kazak, did you get out? What happened to you?
I did not get out this week. I due to working on a couple of things that I have in the hopper in March. I've not been getting out. So instead, I kind of stayed in because my movie budget's going to be a little bit sparse after Christmas. I've actually been reading. And I wanted to recommend 2 books for film lovers. The first one that I want to go ahead and recommend is if you've gone to go see Star Wars and find yourself missing Carrie Fisher, like I did, check out The Princess Diarist. Basically what happened is that Carrie Fisher was cleaning out a room in her house and found the old journals that she wrote when she was 19 and filming Star Wars.
Wow.
So a lot of it is the long rumored but never admitted to affair with Harrison Ford. So it's a lot about being a 19-year-old hung up on Harrison Ford. But the other half of it is Carrie Fisher actually dealing with being Princess Leia for 40 some odd years.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's a really wonderful take on her fame and this being the cynic now, years in the future, recovering rehab patient. It's Carrie Fisher, at her best and her last, because it's the last thing that she wrote, and it's a wonderful little look at being Princess Leia.
Nice.
The second one that I wanted to bring to you, which if you've got if you missed it a couple years ago, it's a book by Carrie Elwes, and it's called As You Wish, and it is a chronicle of the making of The Princess Bride. So you have his take on being the actor in this film, which is one of those it's a timeless film.
Yeah.
And getting to hear, you're getting interjections from everyone who was involved in the production. Things like, the casting, the directing, getting to meet Andre for the first time on set, and realizing just how big this guy is. Just all these great stories about making this terrific film. So if you like kind of tell-all film biography, if you like, what movie making is and reading about the experience, check out these two books.
Man, that is excellent.
I like that.
Yeah, and we need to do that because for some of you going, don't be talking about no books. We ain't doing no reading and stuff. No, there's good stuff out there.
Get the history on the film. It makes your filmmaking film experience that much more fun.
I'm reading a book called Future Noir about the making of Blade Runner, and man, that gives me a whole new appreciation of that film. I love that film already. It's one of my top 5 films of all time.
Yeah,
and just reading all this, behind the scenes and the production, and Ridley Scott, how he came up with his concepts and stuff. Oh my God, this book is amazing. I'm about halfway through it.
Yeah,
and I've that's one of my New Year's resolutions, to read more. So definitely gonna start doing that.
Well, I think that is great because most of these movies anyway are based off of books or some other media. So you might as well go to the source and hear it right. So I did get a chance to go out and see some movies. I saw 3. I did see Richard Jewell, the movie by Clint Eastwood, and I got to say that was a really good film. I was kind of expecting it to be pretty mediocre, borderline, with just the basic tropes in it. But the actor that was playing Richard Jewell himself, his name slips me at the moment,
Paul Walter Hauser.
He sold it. Now, I thought this was going to be difficult, but to watch this film and to just see how he's so clueless as to how the FBI and everybody's just trying to set him up because they just need a guy. They just need a guy, and they figure, why not blame the security guy that was there? So
like Oswald, right?
Right. And so it's like this film dives into it. I'd say to the negative, there might be a little bit of some pacing pieces in the beginning because you kind of want it to get there because it's about the bombing during the Olympics when the Olympics were in Atlanta, right? And it happened on, I think, the 12th day or something like that of the Olympics being there. And so it created, obviously, this big panic. And, of course, the big news thing back then was we got to catch the guy who did this. And, of course, the FBI served up Richard Jewell. So once you see this guy and you see who he is and what he's about, it'll make you mad that they could do this to a guy knowing he's not that quick in the head to see what's going on. It also stars Kathy Bates as his mom. She turns in another star performance here. I found her extremely satisfying to watch her trying to defend a son who doesn't really see how the world's working around him just because he wants to be a police officer so bad. So Richard Jewell, I would say, is definitely a film to go see. There's no negatives to it, really, from that perspective, other than just if you just don't like Clint Eastwood because of the last 2 movies he did. But I think this one kind of redeems that turn that he's taken.
The guy who they got to play Richard Jewell, he's got a great role in I, Tonya as Sean Eckhart.
That's right, it's Jessica Lully, right?
Yeah. No, he's Sean Eckhart.
Sean Eckhart.
The hitman.
Oh, the one that actually hit it.
He's so brilliantly clueless, and he's really good. So
Galuli was her actual boyfriend.
Yeah.
Or husband or whatever.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's perfect. I don't know. I had some reticence about this one because I'd heard a little negative press on it in the way that they treated the reporter. That basically, going back to the source, that was not the way she did things. So
yeah.
I'd heard a little negative press on it, and it made me a little nervous about.
Yeah. And that reporter is played by Olivia Wilde. So you're getting a pretty good story that has a bunch of intrigue. You have a bunch of, basically they just need a patsy and they're okay to do it. And once you see the power of what they can do to somebody and how it can ruin somebody's life, I mean, that's the real gripping part for that. So you really appreciate that. The other movie I saw is I saw Underwater with Carlos, and so he already talked about it, and that's probably enough that needs to be said about that movie.
That's all we need to say about that.
That's all we need to say about that. And then I'll say that the last movie that I've just seen, and it actually does qualify for 2019, which changes some things from my list that we're going to talk about here in a minute. I saw Just Mercy, which this film is a film that's taken from the book by Brian Stevenson, who is an attorney, who is an advocate for people who are on death row who were wrongly convicted. That's what this guy spends his life doing. And there's a statistic or a number of how many people he's had to come through and get pulled off because the reason why they were put in jail is, well, he looks guilty. Or you got a felon who exchanged some time to roll over on somebody even though he wasn't there and didn't see it.
Wrong place, the wrong time.
Yeah. So Just Mercy, this is the deal. This is a tour de force in terms of acting. All right. If you just want to see pew, pew, pew and all that stuff, that ain't this movie. But if you actually want to see some real acting, I'll challenge any movie person. Tell me if you find a better action, a better performance than what Jamie Foxx does here as Johnny D, the guy who is just a black businessman, but he's the guy that they decide to take down. And just the way he plays, how bitter he is, but then at the same time how hopeful he is, then at the same time how he's worried about his family and then kind of not worried about his family because he feels like, I ain't ever going to get out of here. And some of the most gripping scenes, there's at least 4 where you're just sitting there and you're going, man, if I was that guy, I don't know how he's able to do that. Mm-hmm. So in this film, you will love it. Brian Stevenson is the guy who wrote the. So let me back up after that. Michael B. Jordan is playing a young Brian Stevenson, the guy who went off to college, young black man, went off to Harvard. And then what he wanted to do was move from there to Alabama so that he could go in and do something that would make him the most unpopular person in Alabama. And they show how they treated him once he got there, once they found out who he wanted to defend and who he wanted to speak up for. So it has everything that you want in a film in terms of a drama. It's a court drama. They mention To Kill a Mockingbird because that happened in Montgomery there in Alabama. So there's a lot of tie-ins to that, and so that you see that sense. So anybody from Montgomery probably is thinking, yeah, I want to see this film. Hopefully they don't tear us up too bad because of the beliefs of that time. You're talking about this film takes place in 1987. So I had just graduated high school when this film, when all these events were taking place, and I never heard of a guy named Johnny D and these sort of things that had happened to him because they kind of just said, yeah, we're going to give you death row, and then we'll sentence you afterwards. That's literally what they do. So without going any further than that, Just Mercy is probably going to be the best acted film 2019, bar none. There'll be other movies that'll be more exciting, more interesting in terms of that. But when it comes to a courtroom drama and it comes to lives of people, and then the DA, the prosecutor, how they just wouldn't budge at all, even seeing the facts, having it proven to them, and they wouldn't budge.
They never do.
Yeah, it's
they don't
incredible.
Want to admit any wrong.
Yeah, so Just Mercy is an incredible film. I absolutely adored it. So let's get to our big topic for this week. There's that wiki. Let me set down some ground rules, let you know. We're going to talk about the top films, the best and the worst from 2019. Now, when we say best, it doesn't mean that we're saying this is going to win all the Academy Awards. It just means out of all the films we saw, we thought this was the best. And then when it comes to the worst films, these were probably the bigger disappointments or films that we just decided from everything that we got from it that we were just going to skip it all together. For example, what would make me skip a film if, number 1, the trailer does not grab me? Number 2, the people who love that genre say, oh no, this is horrible. And then number 3, if the subject matter, I just don't care about the subject matter, I'm not going to go see it. So those are the 3 reasons why I would skip a movie completely, even though y'all want me to watch movies, but I won't pay to see bad movies. I'll just, I'll tell you, here's the criteria you can use. Because I don't think anybody's going to tell me that Cats really is, I have to really see how bad it is. I think we kind of already know. So let's start off with the film Samurai. We're going to start with the best because we want to keep it positive, yo. So
all right.
For 2019.
2019 favorite movies of the year. I'm going to go from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
Number 5, I have a horror film on here. I guess you could call it a folk horror. Midsummer. Ari Aster directed. Florence Pugh, who's turning out to be one of the most versatile actresses of 2019. She was not only in Midsummer, but she was also in Little Women, and she's coming out in the new Black Widow movie.
Okay.
And Fighting Against My Family.
She's really yes. That's an underrated film for me this year. Is she's really great in that. That was a surprise. Yeah, I love that movie. But Midsummer is it was just so different. And Ari Aster also did The Witch from the year before, which was really kind of another sort of folk horror movie, but more period piece. This takes place in modern times, and it's about grief, which a lot of horror films are about dealing with grief and how we react to it. And her performance in this, she probably gives one of the most realistic performance of a person having a panic attack that you'll ever see on film.
Really?
And she's just really, really good in it. Number 4, Joker. Todd Phillips directed. Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, the Joker. I don't really consider this a comic book movie.
Me either.
It's a very heavy drama.
Yes.
It just happens to use the DC character, Gotham City, Thomas Wayne, Joker. But other than that, this movie could have been about any person with heavy, mental illness. It's remarkable in the way he set the mood for the movie. The score by Hildur, I can't pronounce her last name. I wish I could, but she's Scandinavian, I believe. Her soundtrack for the score for this really adds so much to the film. And from what I read about it, they even used part of her score while they were filming, so Joaquin could kind of almost interact with the music. But yeah, it's a very dreary film. It's very oppressive but these type of movies, I don't know, they kind of hit with me for some reason. A lot of people could compare it to Taxi Driver or King of Comedy, those kind of films, very dark, So, I mean, I just enjoyed it for what it was. Number 3 on my list of my favorite films this year is A Hidden Life. This is Terrence Malick's latest. This is based on a true story of a German farmer. He was recruited during World War II to join Hitler's army, and he went in for a while. But while he was in the army, he sensed that this was not right, that Hitler was wrong, it was evil what he was doing. He was wiping out, Jews and just marching into countries and just laying waste to them, So when he got out, he went back to the farm, worked for a while, and then they called him back. The war's still going on. And he said no, he will not do it. He will not pledge, obedience to Hitler. And that back then, if you don't do that, you go to prison.
Yeah.
And he set a moral, he had his morals, and it's a very humanistic film. It's about a guy who just won't back down, and it's a long movie, but it didn't feel long to me. And if you're into Malick, you'll enjoy this movie. If you're not like his movies, you probably won't get anything out of it. But I found it very moving and very well made. And I just love Malick as a director. I love all his films. So that was number 3. Number 2, another favorite director came out with a film last year, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is probably one of Tarantino's kind of sweetest films. I mean, most of his movies, they're very hard, very violent, very, dark, starting from Reservoir Dogs.
Oh boy.
Kill Bill and Inglourious Basterds, it's just nonstop, violence. But in this movie, there's not a lot, of course, until the very end, and probably everybody's aware of it by now. It's nothing really to spoil. Right. But it is a fairy tale. It's not realistic in as far as the Manson murder subject matter, and that barely is just kind of in the background to kind of like back in those times, 1969, the Manson family and the murders that were going on just kind of gave this whole really weird, unsettling mood to Hollywood and California. And there's a sequence on the Spahn Ranch where the family was living that's probably one of the most unsettling, terrifying scenes you'll ever watch in a Tarantino movie. I mean, this guy could make. I wish Tarantino would actually make a horror movie, a full hardcore horror movie. He'd be great
Mm-hmm.
because he does do tension very well. But the performance, DiCaprio, it's also a movie about filmmaking and movie making and acting and stuff, and his camaraderie with Brad Pitt's character who plays his stunt double is just fantastic. It's just you just watch hours of these guys just hanging out, going to eat at El Coyote restaurant, drinking margaritas, and so yeah, I love this movie. It's second favorite. So my number one, of course, is Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, and I was fortunate enough to see this on the big screen, and man, I was just enthralled through the whole movie. Yeah, some of the de-aging is a little odd, but I got used to it right away, and it didn't bother me. It didn't take me out of the film. Just Scorsese's masterful storytelling and his dialogue, and the way he moves the camera, the editing is just pitch perfect.
Seamless, yeah.
And Pesci probably is one of my favorite. His role is so understated. He's just very quiet. He does the minimal, but you get the most out of watching him do what he does. And Pacino is just like
Loud.
he's just I don't know. He's just like a whirlwind. This guy.
You remember why you like Pacino.
But that's the character. Yeah, the
That's
character
right.
of Hoffa. So he was perfect for it, and it was just a joy just watching these actors. And it's a film about aging, getting old, nostalgia, and crime. That's Scorsese's wheelhouse is the crime film. Casino, Goodfellas,
Yeah.
the what was it, Mean Streets, films like this. So I was absolutely blown away by the film, and I watched it again at home, and I'll probably watch it again sometime this year. So
Yeah.
yeah, just to enjoy the performances.
Super.
Loved it. Those are my top 5.
All right, appreciate it. Kazak, your top 5 best movies of 2019.
All right, let's go ahead and hit these real quick. All right, let me bring up my phone. All right, so I'm kind of going to go, I think, in no particular order on these. I, too, picked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as one of my best because when you hear Tarantino talk about his Hollywood, his love letter, his love of LA. This is the LA that he loves, and you get that pure passion there. Not to mention the fact that you get that wonderful tension that you get in every Tarantino film. You get that rich moment. And like I said, in watching the movie, I read Helter Skelter to get the whole context of the Manson family crimes because it wasn't something I was familiar with, and to get the historical context of the film was interesting to see all these characters come to life, to see Bruce Dern in that great role as Spawn, to see Brad Pitt facing off against Bruce Lee, getting to see Margot Robbie being like 10 minutes of the film, but she's absolutely charming as Sharon Tate. It's a really kind of just good look at the Hollywood that Tarantino loves and was in love with and is still in love with, and getting to see that come to life through his eyes was a really wonderful picture.
Including Dirty Feet, you bet.
Including the feet. Including the feet, that's always there. We don't need to go there because that's a whole other show that I don't even want to be a part of. All right. The next one that I picked, another crime drama on Netflix. This one was El Camino. Like I said, Breaking Bad was a phenomenal series. And to see the tour de force, the tour de force from the gentleman who played Jesse Pinkman, really an intense, deep look at the world of this character right after he's gotten out. To see, going back and getting to relive this whole thing and getting to watch just beautiful, tense moments, the way that Vince Gilligan does them, in throughout the series. It's really, it translates and it stays with you. It's worth going back to the universe of Breaking Bad to see this final chapter close out on this. couldn't get enough of it watching it the first time. I've got 2 horror films on this list. The first horror film that I'll talk about, because I know that Carlos has a lot of negative Stephen King on his. When we get to his worst, and that's a preview. One that I picked that I enjoyed because I went to go see it in the theater was Dr. Sleep. This one was, I don't know how well it's going to translate onto a DVD or a home release, but going to see it in the theater. Not to mention an Alamo Theater, which has a Shining kind of feel to it whenever you walk into it.
Yeah.
Going to see it on a big screen in the presence of, the Overlook Hotel and getting all the fan service of The Shining and getting some really phenomenal performances from everyone involved, getting a great villain, getting 2 great heroes. It's really good to feel that world of not only Stanley Kubrick, but also just the feeling of this story again. It is returning to an old friend, and it is really kind of haunting, and it was a fun horror flick, for 2.5 hours. It was a really good, wonderful, intense kind of vision. So the other one that I picked on here was a film that was a small surprise but was enjoyable all the way through, and that was Ready or Not. A unique kind of take on a game horror film. Getting to see performances from a pretty tight ensemble cast, wonderful gore, just great violence. If you like violent film, this one was definitely one to see. Unique ways of looking, a unique horror film in the fact that basically it wasn't something that you had seen. You're not going through a lot of tropes. You're getting actually something unique and fun here in a horror film. And that's when I go to see horror, because I will watch bad film. I love bad film.
Yeah.
I am that guy who will pay to go see bad movies. This was not a bad film. This is something that you don't necessarily expect. It's worth the rent. It was worth going to see it in theater. It was worth checking out for 2019 if you dig horror. It was worth going to go check out. Finally, one of my top films this year was Knives Out. Rian Johnson redeeming himself from the crap trash that was Last Jedi, and going back and doing what he does best: crime. He really does. He really does crime well. If you take a look at Brick,
because Last Jedi was certainly a crime.
Crime against humanity.
But I mean, if you take a look at Brick, if you take a look at Looper, if you take a look at what he does best with tight ensemble casts and good, kind of bottleneck acting. This was a fun mystery. You get to go. We don't get enough good mysteries. I mean, the last decent mystery film they tried to release was Murder on the Orient Express, and that was just so over budget, which it didn't need to be. This was well timed, well acted, well written, and just genuinely creative. So Knives Out was really kind of a top pick for me this year as an ensemble film, and as a written piece. I like good mysteries, and this was one of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, can't complain. I think that's a really good list. And I'll say my top 5 then, following Carlos's lead there, starting with number 5, I have Scorsese, The Irishman. So I did enjoy that film. It didn't take me too long as well to get used to the special effects that they used on the de-aging on the guys. I thought it was a pretty standard Scorsese film. What you watch a Scorsese film, you get here in Irishman. He doesn't try to pull off any brand new tricks that I could tell, other than the aging thing. He knows what works. He sticks with it. He shoots it. I love the camera roll. Same thing that Carlos just said. I find that The Irishman was, even though it was a 3-hour film, I didn't feel like it went 3 hours to me. It moved pretty quickly.
Kind of flew by for me.
I could definitely tell people to watch it for sure. Number 4, Rocket Man. So this is a film that when it came out, I thought, okay, this is going to probably just be a carbon copy of Bohemian Rhapsody since it worked before, but it turns out, no, that's not the case at all. This one actually is a musical, but the way they did the musical piece to it made sense with the way they used Elton John's music. So if anyone's an Elton John fan, raise your hand, you know that his music lends to visual characterization. So I thought the director did a great he had a great eye for what he felt each song was saying and the way he captured it visually. So it's a pretty stunning movie. It's a movie you can watch. Watching the hero become the bad guy and then become the hero again, as to how fame and all the trappings come to that, and just being someone who's insecure of who you are, even though you're immensely talented. I mean, he was a prodigy, but you know, we get to see that whole roller coaster ride he goes on, and it's phenomenally played by Taron Egerton, who doesn't look anything like Elton John as far as I'm concerned, but the way they set it up and the way they gave him the receding hairline and everything, they did everything so that you could at least consider or at least think, oh, I'm looking at a young Elton John doing this. So it was phenomenal. I had number 3. I do have the Todd Phillips film. I do have Joker. Seeing this film up until that point, I thought Rocketman was the best movie I'd seen up until then. And then once I saw Joker, I realized, oh wow, this is exactly what, if it's a comic book movie, which I don't think it is, it's what that genre needs. It needs something like this, just like the way The Dark Knight was grounded and made Batman feel real, and you could get into all the situations he was in. This is the villain portion of a famous villain getting that same kind of treatment that Batman got from Christopher Nolan, as far as I was concerned. And again, there's no time wasted in this film. It carried itself over, and it made you think about the duality of man, you know, the part of what's right about you and what's wrong about you at the same time. Because in the film, I caught the little pieces of him where, you know, he didn't really want to go catch those kids and beat them up or anything. But it was another guy that wanted to give him a gun. So he said, man, if this ever happens again, blow those effers away. And you could tell that really wasn't his bent until he realized they were cutting his funding, cutting his meds. His mom had lied to him. And then you see Arthur Fleck become somebody else. And I love that turn. At number 2, just edging out that, this is really hard. Number 1 and number 2 are tight for me. This almost could be a tie, but I didn't want to do that. I thought that was a cheap way out. So I'm going to go with Just Mercy at number 2. I'm going to tell you now, the performance of Jamie Foxx. We know he's good. We saw Ray. We saw he was great in Ray. We saw him in Collateral with Tom Cruise. But here, another level. If this guy doesn't get nominated for an Oscar, and if he doesn't win it, it'll be a surprise. And that's saying a lot, because I think that Joaquin Phoenix did a great job in Joker. I think Taron Egerton did a great job in Rocketman. And, of course, you know, Pesci in Irishman I thought was very, very good, as well as De Niro. But Just Mercy, the story gets you. There's 4 major scenes. It'll blow you away. In the theater, when I saw this, there were people sobbing loudly enough to where you could hear it. And it was just like, wow, on some of the scenes where they were trying to show these people on death row who were put there because, well, they needed an alibi, and that person was in the wrong place at the right time, I guess. So the movie will make you mad at the justice system. It'll make you sad for these guys, but then it makes you feel triumphant that there's a guy named Brian Stevenson who decided with his Harvard law degree to go fight for people who couldn't afford them, right? That's the thing. And at number 1... it is the movie I'm going to go see again today, 1917, the World War I flick. We're talking about Sam Mendes. The Film Samurai and I were fortunate enough to see this early. So we got to see Sam Mendes during a question and answer piece, and we got to see the lead actors who were in the film as well. And they talked about the film. It was a wonderful time. So with 1917, it wants to give you the illusion that it's just one shot, just kind of like how they did Birdman. But there's a couple of scenes we could tell where they edited, and that's fine. But you get immersed into this film immediately. It's almost like Saving Private Ryan, the first 25 minutes. That's this whole movie. It's not just the first 25 minutes. The whole movie, it's intense. When you realize what the Germans were doing to set up booby traps when you thought things were okay because there's no people around, and the suspense and the tension, and you just want to see these 2 guys, which is what I love about it. A simple, straightforward story beats any complicated twist any day of the week. Because then you have to explain why the twist happened. Why did Palpatine come back? Well, what was he doing here? Where was Lando? Why wasn't he around when Han Solo died? Right? But here, simple, straightforward.
We don't have 2 more hours of film.
Right? And there's not a whole lot of character development because it doesn't have to have it. It's just this idea that we're in the trenches, and there's what happens in the trenches and what happens outside the trenches. And then you have to decide when you need to be. So Sam Mendes, hats off to me. Number 1 film, and Just Mercy just pushing right at it.
Shout out to Roger Deakins, the cinematographer for that movie.
Yes, sir.
He did some amazing film work or camera work in that movie. There's an amazing sequence where it goes from day to night, where they're
Yes.
using flares in the forest. It was like art, man. To me, I was just like blown away by watching that particular scene.
Mm-hmm.
Very cleverly done, Just
Yes.
loved it.
And it finished well. Usually, sometimes you'll
Yeah.
have a great premise,
Yes.
a great thought, and then they don't know how to stick the landing. No, this
man.
movie stuck the landing. It wasn't so
100%.
obvious, like, oh yeah, then we're gonna go do this. It wasn't. It was just, oh,
Yeah, it's over.
mhm,
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah.
So we love that. So now, for some of you, we know you like to talk about movies, sometimes to hate watch them so you can trash them. Well, for you, you're going to love this, because now we're going to talk about our top 5 films we could have did without that were disappointing, or if you were me, I just straight out dissed them by not even going at all. And we can talk about that, but we're going to start with the film Samurai.
Okay, these are my worst disappointments of 2019. I'll start with number 5. This movie is called Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. This is directed by Joe Berlinger. It stars Zac Efron and Lily Collins, I believe. It's about Ted Bundy, but it's a different twist on that story. I guess the reason I was disappointed in it was because it didn't really deal with the murders. It was more almost like a family drama / comedy, because they made it kind of comedic in a way, which to me seemed very off-putting, at least for me. Maybe some other,
That's a
maybe it
weird
was a choice
tone.
that he wanted to go with
Yeah.
for, I don't know, for whatever reason. But yeah, it was just didn't work for me. And Zac Efron, I like the guy. He was great in what was that, the recent The Greatest Showman. He's actually really good in that. I mean, he's a great performer, but this movie is just no.
Yeah. And Joe Berlinger just does such good documentary work too.
He's a document. Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't
he-
familiar with his work before
Oh no!
this.
Oh yeah, Paradise Lost 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
He did those.
Yeah, he's got a couple of others in there. If you look through his
Yeah,
filmography,
I've seen Paradise
his
Lost.
doc-
That's
man.
amazing.
His documentary work is fantastic.
Okay, I didn't realize. Okay, awesome. Number 4, Dumbo. Another live-action Disney piece of shit.
Why, Todd? Why?
The reason I was so disappointed in this one was because it's Tim Burton, and you kind of expect Tim Burton to at least do something visually interesting or be creative. You know how he usually does, but this movie was just so bland and boring. And yeah, they did a kind of a neat job on the CGI for the elephant, but I couldn't tell you anything about the movie. I guess it was kind of more or less a redoing the animated film, and there was
It was way off the animated film.
touches here and there, but Dumbo gets put in a cage and he has to perform, and he's on a high wire act. They want him to fly, and I mean, yeah, but it just a lot of extraneous stuff that was so unnecessary. I love Eva Green, but man, she was so wasted in this film.
That's
So
a
that was
shame.
just it was just a flop, total flop for me.
I think I've gotten to the point with Burton where if it's a Burton film and it's good, I'm surprised anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
That's true. I think, I mean, to me, the last great watchable Tim Burton movie was still Sleepy Hollow. Love that movie.
I still need to see Big Eyes. 'cause
But
I've heard good
everything
things
since
about that
then
one.
was just kind of very, it wasn't, it's not like the old Tim Burton.
I heard good things about Big Eyes, and that was the one. That's one.
Big
I
Eyes, that's Amy Adams, yeah. That was decent. I remember watching that one. Okay, number 3, It, Chapter 2. Muccieri directed. Muccieri. Definitely not as good as the first It film. The adult cast to me was kind of wasted as well.
It's a shame.
You got Jessica Chastain, McAvoy. The only really standout for me was Bill Hader. I enjoyed watching him, but Pennywise to me seemed like he was hardly in the film.
Yeah.
Because it was just they were going back to the kids and then the adults going back to the kids, the adult, and then where's Pennywise? And then, of course, even in the film, they made fun of it that Stephen King can't end his books correctly, and the film did not end. It's just terrible. So yeah,
Wow.
It's like I'd never watch that film again. So
No.
it was. I watched the first one again. It was really good.
Yeah.
But this one just it didn't work. Number 2. Sorry, another horror movie, Pet Sematary.
Another Stephen King horror film.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like you talk about unnecessary remakes. This is unnecessary, and it's the same problem. Is like, why does the old man tell him to bury the cat when he knows the cat's gonna be fucked up?
Right.
Don't do it.
Right.
He does it. Otherwise, you won't have a movie, I guess. It's that same thing. So,
Well, the fact that
the cat looked cool, though. I like the cat in the movie. He actually looked neat.
It had the mange. How is that cool? No.
like I said, can we spoil this?
Sure, spoil it.
Why not? Who
Yeah.
The
cares?
fact that you take the ending of the film, which is the main plot point of bringing back the little boy, and then reverse it to the 14-year-old girl because they couldn't touch the kid, that's ridiculous. That is the very definition of unnecessary.
Yes, and dumpster fire. Both of them
Yeah,
pictures
so-
are right next to it. Pet
Yeah,
Cemetery,
so
dumpster
this-
fire.
This film deservedly flopped. So,
Go!
number
Kill it with fire!
number 1 disappointment this year. And man, this one really hurts because this is Brian De Palma, one of my favorite directors, Domino. And I didn't see this in theater because I don't even know if they even released it in theaters. Maybe Los Angeles and New York, but I saw it on streaming.
Okay.
And I was hoping, okay, at least De Palma has some style. The movie may be shit, but he's got some interesting camera moves, and he does that split diopter stuff. And
Right.
I like Nikolai, the actor who's Jamie from Game of Thrones. But man, this movie was a big bag of nothing. It was just dull, confusing. None of the trademark stuff that you expect from a De Palma film. And man, it just like I rated on Letterboxd like 1.5. It was just
1.5.
so bad. It was just like I didn't like it at all. So that was it. That was like that hurt. Like,
Basically, it was just Guy Pearce getting to work with Brian De Palma, and that's it.
Yeah.
Mhm. So man, I don't know what happened to De Palma. He needs to reevaluate his material. I don't know if this was an adaptation of something else. Maybe that was a problem that he didn't write it himself. I never really felt the need to look into it, but it was just that bad for me. It's like I didn't care. Once I watched it, I was like, ugh, just want to forget this film. So yeah, that's my top 5 disappointments.
Great. Kazak.
Big sigh.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's go through these travesties and tragedies that were in 2019. Let's start with the bland leading the bland, and that was Captain Marvel.
Oh, God, yes. Ugh.
When you have the most powerful hero in the Marvel universe, and you basically play her as interesting as a cup of weak tea, it just doesn't work. There was no memorable fight. There was no memorable characters. Basically, even writing off one of the major tropes, Sam Jackson losing his eye as a joke.
Right.
That was dumb.
None of this I wanted to see, and I was pissed I paid full price for it.
Cringed so hard.
This is the reason why I don't go to movies in the theaters. Because again, I'm looking at a lot of the films that I watched over the year, and I realized that a whole lot of it were event films that I was basically just going to watch completion on.
Yeah.
Because you've seen 30-something films and you want to get to the end. Or are you seeing it in the comic book world and you just want to, I want to get to the next issue. And like I said, this was just one of those where I paid full price for this. Z. They were all, it was just a whole bunch of Z's.
They got your money.
They got my money. Number 4, Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Oh.
About 20 minutes of this film is great, and it's all the monster stuff.
Yeah.
It's all the human bullshit that goes along with the film that just makes it annoying. I mean, everything from Japanese Jeff Goldblum to,
Kid from Stranger Things.
No, it was a wasted performance from Millie Bobby Brown. It was a wasted performance from Vera Farmiga. I so couldn't care less about the villains of the film. Just let me see the friggin' monsters.
My favorite shot was Mothra just spreading her wings. That was beautiful. Yeah. That was the only good thing in the film.
Yeah, and but then you have monster fights, and then suddenly a plane gets in the way, and then there's rain all over the place, and there's no good way to watch this film other than the 20 minutes that was good. That was monster fighting. Like I said, my favorite line in the film is this what my 9-year-old brother wouldn't have wanted? And then he wanted to see monsters. He wouldn't have wanted this.
I should release the monster cut.
Exactly.
There's just all the monster scenes in it. It's probably like 10 minutes.
Just give me that 20 minutes and I'll be good. I'll be fine.
It's like the reverse Jar Jar here. If you cut Jar Jar out of that movie here, cut all the humans out of this one and leave the monsters. It's reverse Jar Jar going on.
So, number 3, this was a huge disappointment for me, Brightburn. I really loved the concept on this film. I really loved that you take Superman and what you turn him into the absolute worst kid ever. And then I watched the film, and it's just so badly edited. I mean, you've got just plot points being explained to you in like 2 minutes, and I realized that my kid is no evil after not knowing this for 12 years, and just terrible editing, badly put together. I mean, there some of the horror parts, which is great. Like I said, I like horror, and there's some really wonderful gore in it. But as a film in and of itself, it's badly put together. I mean, you really underestimate the power of good editing and the power of good cinematography until you see something like this, where I think you've got, kind of first-time filmmakers, James Gunn's brothers, who are making this film for the first time. And the fact is that you've got a great concept, something that looks great on paper, but when they try to pull it off, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
And it made me sad because I was really excited through the trailers and hearing the plot. It was really just kind of one of those moments where I really got just disappointed and ripped off by a film that I really thought I was going to dig.
Yeah, that is disappointing.
And that I think, and that's why it ranked on my worst this year. Number 2, we're going to go with Yesterday. Okay.
Yesterday.
So basically, this is a 2-hour karaoke movie with time travel.
Yes.
No. Just none of it. None of it I want to see. None of it.
It was a romance, too. God.
Just, the thing is that, like I said, most everyone can say they like the Beatles. There's at least one song in there that you like the Beatles.
Absolutely.
And the fact is that the Beatles were a product of their time. There's no reason why any of this would even be possible to succeed. And the fact is that it's a love letter to Beatles music, and it's basically a fucking karaoke concert for 2 hours with a story. I don't need to see that. I don't care how good the filmmaker is, because he is great. I don't need to see this. Okay, I mean, if I'll go watch Across the Universe again before
watch
I see this.
the Bruce Springsteen one where the kid is discovers Bruce Springsteen. What's it called? It's not Born to Run. It's something like that. But it's probably will work.
I detest Bruce Springsteen, so
there you go. See, there you have it.
Okay, and my number one on this, which I can't almost wait to tear into this, is The Fanatic. John Travolta goes full retard, and I don't like to use that word, but I have to use the word in this context because it is him going absolutely stupid. What career choices do you have to make? What in the name of Xenu did you have to do to have to agree to do this film to get money? Why?
Maybe he wanted to work with Fred Durst.
Nobody wants to work with Fred Durst. Nobody wants to work with Fred Durst. And the fact that they did, no. It's just, Just forget it. No, it was impossible.
That was fun.
It is just absolute trash. Cinema, terrible writing, terrible acting, all of it gone.
Just done.
Cancel culture.
Cancel it all.
You didn't like the part where he was imitating an English Bobby?
I don't even want to imagine
London
that.
Bridge is right over there.
Imagine that.
Poppycock. He kept saying poppycock over there.
All right.
That
Well,
was
let me give you
hilarious.
my 5. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to try to go through these.
Take your time, man.
Take our time?
Yeah.
All right, we're taking our time. I listen to what the guy in the chair says. All right, so with that, my 5 worst films. Now, for me, since money is tight, I'm not going to spend nary a dollar on a movie I already know sucks. So my list would have been disappointing if I actually sat in the theater. But for me, I just straight up dissed these films. These are films I straight up said I'm not going to go see for 3 reasons. I'll say them again. Number 1, the trailer did not sell me. Number 2, people who like that genre said the movie wasn't good. Number 3, the subject matter just wasn't interesting to me. If any of those 3 things happen, I can skip and diss a movie and sleep well at night, even though I review movies. So here are the ones I straight up dissed. Number 5, Rambo: Last Blood. Sylvester Stallone, and he's 70-something now, trying to still pretend to be Rambo. He should be like in an old folks' home somewhere, beating people at checkers and chess and getting mad and turn over the table like Chewbacca in Star Wars. This guy, who wants to see this? Who wants to see a guy going senile? And if he ever tries to say something like, "You're the disease and I'm the cure," or some line, it wouldn't work because all the Botox wouldn't make his face move to say it right. So, no.
He should be raging against the Social Security office and the guys on Fox News.
Yes, he stole money. If anybody paid to see this movie, you probably got mad and walked out, and it's okay. You can vent that here in the comments section. Number 4. Really pissed about this one. Shaft 2019. Why did we need another Shaft movie? This one pales in comparison to the original one that I saw that had Christian Bale, who would later on become Batman. He wasn't Batman at that time. And Samuel Jackson and Jeffrey Wright as Joe Peoples, right? That was great. But when I saw the trailer for this and they were going to do the generations of Shafts and put them together, I was like, that's got to be one of the worst ideas ever. I don't need to see that.
How did Richard Roundtree agree to do that movie?
Yeah, how did Richard Roundtree, again, almost like The Fanatic, what did they have to say to you? What pictures do they have of you doing something that's wrong to make you sign up and do this abortion of a movie here? So Shaft 2019 goes down in fire, and I still didn't care. Okay, number 3. The Last Christmas. Number 1, I hate the song, so I'm not going to sit for 2 hours of a movie that probably played that as an intercut. But The Last Christmas, movies around themes like this, if it ain't Home Alone, this is your last Christmas. Do not put a film out like this.
You're not sitting home and watching Hallmark films?
No. I will not watch this.
Not having your cat go home. It's okay. They'll get together. I promise, Kitty.
Oh, my gosh. And Emma knows better than this.
I heard there was a real graphic sex scene in it, though.
Really?
So it might have been. No, I'm just kidding.
That was The Last Christmas. What do you think? They had to do something, right? And then number 2, equally, why did you make this film? Like, why did you make Shaft? Why would you make Charlie's Angels? Why? The better of Charlie's Angels was Bombshell. I mean, seriously, that was way better. But Charlie's Angels, I love the fact that Elizabeth Banks was the director and that she was actually trying to do something different. But the problem was execution, cutting, pasting, everything else is what I heard from the people who actually thought they were going to love this film. Mostly some of the girls that I know that wanted to go see this film said it did the opposite of empowering them. It depowered them. And they were like, I'm like, well, that's horrible. And they called it Charlie's Angels and all that stuff. So, no one ever asked for Charlie's Angels, just like nobody's asking for Fantasy Island or anything like that.
I don't know. I've actually heard intriguing things about the remake that they're doing with Fantasy Island.
Oh my gosh, we heard
Straight out horror film. No, this is gonna be a straight out horror film.
It's gonna be a horror film
with the dude from Ant-Man.
Oh, Paul Rudd?
No,
the other dude from Ant-Man.
The fast talking guy.
Oh my God, not him.
No.
He's
Not
Mr. Rourke.
him.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep. It's happening. It's coming.
Now you see here, what we have here is a failure to make a movie that communicates goodness to me.
Shoot me in the face.
And believe it or not, folks, as bad as these films are, there's one even worse than this, and it's my number 1 worst film, and that is Cats. And it should be even if you added dogs to this, you couldn't save it because I'd love to see the dogs eat the cats, but that wouldn't save this film. That would be the great villain. So cats, no.
It's already getting.
You don't want
Rocky
to
Horror
see.
treatment.
You don't want to see Dame Judi Dench licking her own asshole.
No, I do not. I don't
Why?
even want to
Because
see Ian
she
McKellen.
can.
Oh my goodness. No, look what the cat drug up.
Rebel Wilson eating cockroaches.
No, when you do this, when you have a cast like that, and just tell them, okay, here's the deal. We're just gonna put you in cat suits and makeup, and then y'all just get to be who you are. And then there's some direction here, somewhat from a very popular musical, stage show, all that, and screenplay.
Which made no sense. Which didn't have a plot, and then you're trying to interject
At
a
all.
plot, and then it
At all, and you're spot on with that. So
here's a lot of really great actors. Here's a lot of money, and we're going to open you up against Star Wars. Go!
and I'm really upset with Idris Elba. Really, you did this movie? You did this movie? Oh my gosh!
Well, he did Rent.
Hope
too.
he got a paycheck for that, like a hell of a paycheck.
They had to have, because I mean, if you can put me in an itchy one suit all day, there better be some kind of perks or benefits. But Cats, ladies and gentlemen, to me was the biggest movie. I'm happy to diss and happy to put at the top of this list.
Yeah, I think Jennifer Hudson's Booger is going to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress. For your consideration.
Yes, and so, what did you think? I'm speaking to you guys out there watching the show live. What did you think? Did we miss a movie that was even worse than these? Well, go ahead and put that in the comments section, and we'll make sure we rip it apart with you inside, but it'll be inside our heads because we'll be watching later. But at any rate, whichever way, if there's a movie that we missed, let us know so we can actually put that on there. And actually, if there was a movie we missed on the best, go ahead and put that in there, and we'll open up some dialogue with you on that. And by the way, if any of these movies on the worst list actually turned out to be a pretty good movie, let me know. I'll watch it on stream because I won't pay the money, and then I'll do a review on it and tell you what I really thought of it, see if you were actually crazy for liking it, or if it really was a movie that just was in the middle, and it just depends on your personality. But I have
And
a
if
feeling
any of
that-
you like The Fanatic, seek professional help.
there it is. But I have a feeling
We'll
that
flash
Cats-
up a hotline to him before.
Yes. There's probably somebody out there that actually likes cats. So you're the person we really need to talk to because we need to make sure you're okay.
Those theater
and all
kids.
that. So so let's do our shout outs. Our next episode will be January 26th. We're going to have some more things coming out before then. But let's do our shout outs. Who do you want to shout out to,
Couple
Carlos?
of guys that were nice enough to retweet when I posted about the last episode. Couch Boom, good buddy of mine, and Nuts for R2. This guy is a blogger. He writes some really good reviews.
Nice.
So thanks to those two guys and my kids, Matt and Nick Cole, who listen, and also got a couple of cousins out in California, Stella and Joel. Always getting ready to see them in February at our family reunion. So
Got it.
all my Twitter buddies, love you all.
Love it, love it. How about you, Zach?
Shout outs to the guys who do the shows on the alternating weeks with us. That is the Rancor Pit Live, Eddie Medina and Cole Houston. Cole was on the show a couple weeks back. And, of course, Eddie Medina. Those guys host the Rancor Pit Live. They air every other Sunday at 10:30 when we're not on. And, of course, you can check out next week Isle of Toys, the toy collector show that's hosted by Cole. I know PJ's been a guest on there. I engineer it, and of course, like I said, it's just a fun show that you should really check out. And of course, if you love Star Wars, do check out the Rancor Pit Live when we're not here.
That's exactly right. And so my shout outs, I want to give a shout out to Troy Ross. Thanks for watching and then sharing, because the quicker we get this audience built up, the more we can do giveaways and things like that. That's what we really want to do. Michael Paul, Daniel Meza are always in the house. Stephanie Crane watches this pretty live. Mad Mel does a lot of commenting, and so we love it. So you guys need to take a page out of Mad Mel's book and comment. When we know what you're saying about the show, it helps us do a lot more things. And then, of course, Scott Laney and Sandra, who are watching from all the way up north in Indiana. So.
Wow.
That was it. Next show, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about we're going to look forward, and we're going to talk about the movies we're most anticipating in 2020. And if we have some time, we might even slip in some of the sleeper hits of 2019. But for the most part, we will tell you what we anticipate for 2020. So with that, we're on our way out. Carlos?
Sayonara, everybody.
Okay, Zach?
Let's get out of here. Stay tuned for the Vortex of Doom. This is DallasOnAir.com.